But I noticed from a lot of the cases that I look at, the more confident fraudsters, they go in, especially if you bring in a fake ID that's from a different state. You see the shit on it, but unless you're going and you're looking at the ID guides and all that, you don't really know what the fuck you're looking at. A lot of times they were coming in, and as you will see with this case, that was pretty much what they were doing. They were going in and getting the things cleared. If they do their things right, there's a high probability that the bank will release that money.
Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I'm not really going to be interviewing, but I'm going to be taking part in a discussion with infamous Ghost Money. He's got a YouTube channel where he dissects different types of frauds that are going on. He contacted me and said, hey, look, here's a scam that's happening, and I'm trying to kind of dissect it, what these guys were doing, in this scam. And these guys end up getting arrested, and I don't know what kind of time they got. So check this out.
All right, y'all. So today we're going to be talking about a recent case that came up late September involving a hip hop artist known as Kafani. To be honest, I never heard of this dude. I tried to listen to like one or two of his songs. It wasn't my thing. So I kind of turned that off ASAP. But with that being said, this man is a all the way fraudster, and I say that respectfully. His resume speaks for itself, and you soon will see. But this gentleman's method of doing fraud involved mortgage fraud. The Ghost knows about a lot of different methods, but for this, I had to reach out to Mr. Matthew Cox because, if I'm not mistaken, Matthew, that was your thing, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So if you want to just tell to the people who don't know who you want to explain to them why you are a qualified individual to speak on mortgage fraud.
Let's see. I owned so you want to go a 5-minute version, or what do you want?
We're just jonesing, Matt. Do what you gotta do.
Basically, I owned a mortgage company for about 5 years. I was a mortgage broker for about 6 years, and I was on the run for 3 years. Plus, I committed fraud in Tampa. So basically, 10 years I was committing mortgage fraud. I owned a brokerage business. I was a FHA approved lender, and a VA approved lender, subprime broker, and a conventional broker. And I committed roughly my company committed roughly about $40 to $55 million in fraud. I personally committed $15 million in mortgage fraud as a fraudster or a con man, whatever you want to call it. And I was number one on the Secret Service's most wanted list. I was eventually captured. I was given 26 years. I served 13 years for fraud, for bank fraud. And so that's basically that is essentially what I guess my my qualifications are, that I know underwriting guidelines and I know mortgage scams inside and out. In fact, one of the ways that I reduced my federal sentence was I wrote what's called an ethics and fraud course for the U.S. government that is used to teach ethics and fraud to the nation's loan officers and mortgage officers under the Dodd-Frank Act.
So I ain't even got to say anything after that,
extensive. Y'all. Yeah, I have extensive experience in bank fraud, mortgage fraud.
Absolutely. And there's just two things I want to add to what you said before we jump into this. That is crazy. I didn't know that you created a course that they're using around ethics and fraud, like you said. That's to teach loan officers. Is that who you said it was?
Yeah, it's basically goes over. There's like 7 or 8 different types of mortgage scams, and there's different variations of all of them, obviously. But also, it's basically just about ethics and fraud and or ethics, where it just kind of explains, like, look, people basically convince themselves, brokers will often convince themselves that by lying on an application or changing a document that they're really helping their client, and that's just not true. And so it's more than just me explaining, like, this is a fraud and that's a fraud and this is a fraud. It's more than just that. It's also like, look, don't get sucked into this trap by telling yourself that you're helping your client, because that's not what's happening at all. So You know, it's more
You,
than just fraud. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
you know, just along those lines, what you said, something you said really resonated me. And sometimes people could convince themselves that they think that they're helping somebody, but really you're not. And this is
No.
something I kind of wanted to get into in my channel, but speaking specifically in some of the communities that I grew up in, sometimes people view those things as a hookup. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you think about the PPP loans and everything that was happening, people that didn't know any better that was being put onto these scams, they didn't know all the way that, hey, this is illegal, and what comes behind it, because they see the person that's putting them on like, this person's hooking me up. And in a lot of communities, that's seen as a positive thing. Same thing with tax returns and all these different things. And just like you said, with loans, because I spent a little bit of my professional career, you could say, working closely with someone who did mortgages, and this guy was a beast. But some of the tactics that he did in just the cold calling alone, it's like, it was a little dirty. But like you said, at the end of it, it was funny how a lot of these people ended up, feeling like this was a good thing. And many times it was a good thing, but I can only assume a lot of those people, they couldn't really afford those homes. And after a matter of time, I can only imagine where those people is at now. But hey, it is what it is. The way I view a lot of those things is, and some people might not agree with me on it, there's so much information out there that if you get caught up in something, it's kind of unfortunate that you didn't do your research prior, because there's so much information, but people are just so quick to believe what they want to believe and not want to take the time to try and look into, like, what's the other side of it.
Right.
But anyways, all right, so there you have it, guys. Mr. Matt. And also, I wanted to say another funny thing. Like I told you when we first spoke, if you ever are watching TV like at 4 or 5 in the morning, there's a chance you might see Mr. Matt on the
Oh,
screen, because he was part of like some commercial around identity theft or something like
yeah,
that.
it's a title theft, which is one of the things that I did, which was it's title fraud. It's committing title fraud on people's homes. People's actually very similar to what this guy does.
Mm,
Like the case we're about to talk to, very similar. That's why I really feel like, yeah, I'm positive what this guy did. In fact, what he
mm.
did actually, there was a Nigerian guy.
Shout out to
Um,
the Nigerians, the
there's a
motherland. Holla back.
Nigerian team. Really, it was led by the main guy was a Nigerian. Um,
I feel like so many scams start with
oh
just
yeah,
that. The
yeah.
head goes to
They called
Nigeria.
him the king of the HELOCs. And
Ooh,
I forget what it was, like $80 million
god damn.
he was believed to have done in HELOC loans on other people's properties, just like this guy, just like
Mm.
this guy. But let's go ahead and let's get into it. What's up? Let's
Yeah,
do
man.
this.
You see, this is what I want. I want to enjoy the conversation. Now we're vibing. So, but yeah, those I don't mean to say those Nigerians. We talked about ancestry. I got a large part of Nigerian in me. Pause. Um, but yeah, like so many scams. Like there was one I was looking into. I wanted to look into it, but for some reason, it's so hard to find information on the people who's in Nigeria. You always got the people they use in the United States as mules to kind of like
Mhm.
funnel the money, but to get the people who are actually running the shit, it's kind of hard. Like there was a big criminal enterprise out of Ghana, I believe, where they were doing business email compromise scams, romance scams, trust. They were doing all sorts of things and just funneling the money through individuals in the United States. So when you look through the paperwork, it's not too interesting, because it doesn't really give any details around how they were doing the business email compromise scams, which is something a lot of my people have been wanting to look into. But all right, anyway, let's get into this case, y'all. All right, so who is Kafani? Like I said, he's a rapper. Bling, bling, bling. Kafani is a rapper out of Oakland, I believe. And please, y'all, don't come at me if I say the wrong thing. I am not a hip hop channel. I know a lot of people say I'm kind of similar to Academic. Shout out to him, but I am not a hip hop channel. I never listened to this dude before, with all due respect. But he's out of Oakland, and based on his Wikipedia page, his name is Amir Rashid, but in the paperwork, his name is Mark Hicks. His stage name is Kafani, and he's an American rapper from the Funk Town section of San Antonio, California. San Antonio, Oakland, California. He graduated from Oakland High School in 1998, where he played varsity basketball, and he eventually signed to Fizz Nation, a subdivision of the late Mac Dre's label Fizz Entertainment. Are you into hip hop, Matt?
No, I listen to country music.
Oh,
I was born and raised in Tampa, Florida.
I got a funny story about Tampa. A couple years ago, I was in Tampa, right? And I'm used to living in big cities like LA, New York, sections in Texas. But anyways, it was like not really much to do. So when I walked out, all I saw was a bunch of alligators and ponds. So I'm like, oh, this is crazy. So and I didn't have a car, so I took a Lyft to a mall. So I'm just like, all right, I'll walk around the mall and see what's going on out here, thinking I'm gonna see something interesting. It was nothing interesting. So I'm like, all right, let me walk outside. And then when you walk outside, it's nothing but highways. So I'm just walking in between a bunch of people's cars. And imagine a black dude just walking in between a bunch of people's cars. It wasn't a comfortable situation, to say the least. Anyways, let's keep it going. So a little bit more about Kafani. On September 28, 2013, Kafani was shot several times in East Oakland after shooting a music video. He was permanently paralyzed from the waist down. And on October 18, 2013, he spoke for the first time since the shooting, in which he said, "Took 5 shots. They say I might not walk again, but I'm on God's team, so I know I'm going to win." Holla back. Kafani has launched a crowdfunding campaign with a concert on September 12, 2014 to acquire an assistive robotic device to walk again. And it almost seems as if he got it because I found these pictures here. And this is not funny. I mean, with hip hop, they do a lot to appear real. And let me not even say that because a lot of these people, they do come from rough backgrounds. But unfortunately, this gentleman, he got shot 5 times, could never walk again. And this happened in 2013. I think that's when his hip hop career was actually doing well. But it does seem as if he got those legs because look at that. That's pretty interesting. All right, so that's a little bit about him. I wanted to talk about him before we just jump into the fraud, but this is what we were here for. And this is why I put bookmarks in the comments for y'all that say, yo, go to the bookmark. Simple as that. Let's talk about his career in fraud. Mark Hicks' criminal history dates back to his juvenile days. At 20, he was arrested for bank fraud and sentenced to 6 months in jail. Less than 2 years later, he was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to 32 months in prison for get credit, use others' IDs. He was on probation for that offense when he was again arrested, this time for false information to law enforcement. 1 year later, in 2008, he was arrested yet again, this time charged with being a violent felon in possession of a firearm. Matt, I kind of have an idea of what get credit, use others' IDs is, but do you have any? You want to talk a little bit about what that is?
He was arrested for bank fraud and sentenced to 6 months. Less than 2 years arrested for a get credit use. Okay, I don't know. Maybe it's what do you think it is? Get credit use. I mean, is he using someone's ID to get like a credit line or something? I mean, that doesn't.
That's what I assumed. Like maybe just
get credit. Like I don't know that I've never seen this as a federal term.
Yeah, that's why it was a little weird to me. But I assumed it was probably using stolen identities to get credit because that kind of seemed to be this guy's thing as we go on.
Or is he like, to me that would fall under, he would have been hit with 24 months for aggravated identity theft. This may actually be where he's getting other people, using other people like a straw man scam to get them credit.
Get credit, use.
So maybe he's charging people to acquire credit for them, and then they get the credit card, and then he gets paid through the credit card or some system or something. I'm not sure.
This might have to look into that in another episode. I don't know.
A little vague.
All right, but let's keep it moving. None of the arrests or convictions deterred Hicks because from 2018 to November 2012, Hicks
2008.
participated. Oh, wow.
From 2008 through 2012, right? Hicks participated in. Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna start that over because you just like exposed me for I can't read. Anyways, none of the artists or convictions deterred Hicks, and from 2008 through November 2012, Hicks participated in a complex multi-defendant scheme to defraud MoneyGram and USAA federal savings, employing the same modus operandi he would use in this case. In the USAA and MoneyGram fraud, Hicks and his co-conspirators obtained personal identifying information of his victims, made telephone calls to the bank impersonating them, and working with co-conspirators, obtained fraudulent proceeds from the victims. He was arrested in 2013, and despite this arrest, Hicks continued to engage in sophisticated fraud schemes. In 2014, he was arrested and charged with grand theft and felon addict possessing a firearm. And according to the PSR, Hicks would hack into the Federal Express package tracking system and was rerouting packages where he had co-conspirators pick them up. He was observed picking up one of these packages from his co-conspirators in April 2015. The Honorable Phyllis J. Hamilton sentenced Hicks to 39 months in prison for the MoneyGram and USAA fraud and ordered restitution of $258,400. And in 2016, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison on state charges. So a lot. This man has done a lot of fraud in and out of prison for doing fraud, and his modus operandi seems to be using people's identities to then apply for some sort of credit and the different variations of cashing out.
Right. So to me, in this one, the quick version is he's obtaining people's information. Sounds like he's calling from a cell phone, but he's probably using like the spoof app.
Mm-hmm.
So the bank thinks they're calling from their home phone number. And he's then applying online and getting some kind of getting them to issue him a check. And then when they overnight the check, he's having the checks, which the bank thinks they're overnighting the check to this person's home address, when in fact he's having those checks rerouted to another address so they get a hold of the checks. And then they could deposit those checks. Because it doesn't say that he's acquiring identification in those people's names. He's got their information. So he's just calling on the phone saying, yeah, my name is this, my date of birth is this, my social security number. I work here, and I'm applying for a $5,000 cash or a $5,000, personal loan or a payday loan of some type. And he's saying USAA. So he's actually probably getting, it looks like he's getting a personal loan. Could be $5,000. They go up to I think you can get them like $25,000 for a personal loan. And he probably is providing some kind of a pay stub to verify their like their 2 weeks, or sometimes they ask for like a month's worth of pay stubs. So you provide them 2 pay stubs. And, and they'll lend you, most banks will lend you double whatever you make in a month, up to like $25,000. When I used to do this, it was up to $15,000. I think they go up to 25 now. But anyway, so then he's getting the checks sent, send it to my house, which they verify on their, when they pull the credit there, they see this is his home address. So they don't have a problem overnighting it to that address. And then he somehow or another has it rerouted. Not sure how he's rerouting. They're saying he hacked in. Hacked in could have simply been him just simply having the password to their account and having it rerouted.
Yeah, and also I would imagine during this time, if you had like the address and just basic information on someone and the tracking number, you probably could go in there and just switch it up if you had that information.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like they act like it's hacking, like he hacked in and he knew how to rewrite the code and everything. He probably just made a phone call or went online and had the correct information. But yeah, so that's what I think he probably got in trouble here for.
And this happened like I said, 2008, 2012. from what I understand, it seems like now people are more aware of how spoofing works. So I can imagine during this time, you get a number, a phone call from a number that you think you could trust, they would probably pick it up and go for it immediately. Because I know as of like the past 2-3 years, it seems like more awareness has been raised around spoofing, and more people are aware. Just because if you see that number doesn't mean it's necessarily that person. But that's a big part of how he did a lot of his thing, as we're gonna see. All right, so with that, his most recent scheme that he has had to spend some time in for. So, Bay Area rapper Mark Kafani Hicks and two co-conspirators sentenced to prison for multi-million-dollar mortgage fraud scheme. The Bay Area rapper Mark Kafani Hicks, aka Amir Rashid, was sentenced to 87 months in prison for his role in orchestrating a complex loan fraud, and identity theft conspiracy. So loan fraud, identity theft, a lot of what he did in the past, you know what I'm saying? He was a one-trick pony in different variations. So I guess he was riding different ponies.
Yeah, well, he's upped his
Pause.
game. When he moved to the mortgages, it's big money.
Yeah, yeah. But still, pause. I said he was, yeah, whatever. Anyway, these are the individuals involved in the case. And he has an interest because he goes by Amir Rashid, but then Mark Hicks, and of course Kafani, his stage name. But his name is Mark the Django Hicks. Then we also have Tyrone Alexander Jones, Suzanne Areola Martin, and I had to laugh when I read that name a couple times. Christopher Poole, Demarcus Hicks, aka Smurf, Dion Cias, Donnie Costello, and Leaf Scrochard. And a whole list of violations there. I am not going to go through all of that, but clearly they was going in all the way in. All right, so I'm gonna break this down because I'm not about to read all of this.
Right.
But this was the conspiracy beginning at a date unknown to the grand jury, but no later than in or about May 2018, and continuing through a date unknown, but at least in or about February 2020. The way they write these things is just like,
I know.
you could have wrote this in a way that was much more simpler to just
Well,
read.
they want to cover like they don't want to indict them or write them up on the motion and not cover everything. So it ends up being, even if they say, well, Your Honor, that's not true because this happened 6 months. Then they say we said around or about. We said, it's like, gee, but it's a nightmare to read.
It really is. And that's why you subscribe to my channel, because I make it interesting for you. There you go. But anyway, their scheme had several layers in it. All right. So the objective of the scheme was the scheme to defraud were, among other objectives, first, A, to obtain stolen personal identifying information from identity theft victims. B, to use that stolen information to open bank accounts in the identity theft victims' names. From there, they would establish emails using the identity theft victims' names, to use the identity theft victims' identities to obtain refinance loans using the identity theft victims' property as collateral. Then they would direct the loan companies to wire the loan proceeds to the bank accounts that they opened earlier in the victim's name, and they would cash out or extract the money from ATM withdrawals, doing store purchases for high-end goods, and they also purchased a ton of gold. And then they would resell a lot of that gold for cash for personal use. So several layers to this scheme. But Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like it was just getting their hands on people's information, opening bank accounts, establishing emails and phone numbers. Then they apply for these refinance loans, get the money sent to their account, and then they have these various ways of cashing out, which included ATM withdrawals, store purchases, and purchasing gold.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely. What I'm wondering about is how, listen, the hardest thing is, unfortunately, this is, this wouldn't be hard at all for me, any of this, but the hardest part for a typical person, other than if they had access to the information, right, which there's various ways to get that information. The problem is opening the bank account. Right? Like now, maybe if you have the person's credit card you have the person's a copy of their driver's license, and you have their date of birth and their social security number, and then you could probably open it up online.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get a large transaction on a new bank account, then they'll usually freeze that bank account a lot of times. But I also noticed that, they're getting where are they getting the ATM card mailed to pull the money out online? Where are they? They're either getting those ATM cards rerouted, or, and I know a guy that used to do this. He used to get he'd apply for a credit. He'd use a spoof app, get your information, apply for a credit card, and then get like a 30, 40, 100, 50 or a $50,000 credit card, and they would overnight it to you. He would go and sit in front of the person's house and wait for the UPS guy or FedEx guy to show up, and then he'd get out of he had a nice car, like a brand new Lincoln. He would, and this is like $1 million house, $2 million house. He'd park in front, and when the UPS guy pulled up, he'd get out of his car and start walking towards the house, like he was about to walk in his house. And so, keep in mind that the actual owner of the house is at work. And so he'd start walking, he'd turn around and see the UPS driver. He'd be like, "Oh, hey, are you looking for, John Smith?" And he'd go, "Yeah, are you Mr. Smith?" "Yes, I am." He'd go, "Okay, here, I have a delivery." He'd give him the card. And then he'd open it up, and a UPS guy would get in the truck, drive off. He'd get in his car, drive off, and he'd call with the spoof app, and he'd activate the card, and he'd start using the card. So these guys, but opening the bank account is probably the hardest thing, because you're going to need a real ID unless you want to do it online. I guess you can open them online. But if you start getting large wires sent to that account, a brand new account, it's going to be a problem.
First, with the gentleman that you spoke of, did you have him on your channel once? Was he the black dude with the glasses?
No, that's Zach. His boy Zach is brilliant. He could be an
you
idiot
guys.
too.
You guys were classic together, man.
He's great.
that video was amazing.
It's funny, for as brilliant as he is, and funny, super funny, but as brilliant as he is with his scams, he would have this amazing, intricate scam that would make millions, and then he'd do something completely stupid, like use a stolen credit card to buy or to rent a room that he's staying in, or rent a rental car. It's like, you've got $4 million, you can't pay for your own rental car. What are you doing? Or you buy a ticket, a $400 ticket with a stolen, and it's like, you're going to be on that plane. You just paid $400 for a plane ticket with a stolen credit card. Now you're attached to that stolen ticket for the next 3 hours while you're flying across the country. You're going to land, and they're going to grab you.
It's that easy.
Like, why would you do that?
And that's what I love about my channel, because a lot of these cases and a lot of what you said, you're already catching on to where they fucked up.
Yeah, it's just brilliant. It's just
you're already catching on to where they fucked up.
You put all this thought into it, and the problem is, I think you get cocky.
Absolutely.
And these guys make mistakes, and it's like, they don't run, especially when they don't run it as a business. Like they don't want to invest $1 into their scam. That always upsets me. It's like, you don't want to put $1 into your scam. You're about to make $500,000, but you don't want to spend $2,000.
But how am I gonna get icy though, Matt? I got to get the bling bling in the nice car and post it on Instagram. What are you talking about?
You have $498,000 left.
Chill. No.
So this looks to me like, they're opening accounts. Maybe they're seasoning those accounts for a certain period of time, or maybe they're getting a fake ID, but I don't see anything about fake IDs.
Without jumping too far, I do want to kind of challenge one thing you said. It's very easy to open bank accounts with fake ID, because social engineering, like even what your boy did, that's just like flat out social engineering, and just someone thinking, oh, this is all right. And if you think about a lot of these employees, I don't know if you're familiar with that Wells Fargo scandal, but a lot of these banking employees, apparently they get paid for every account that they open, and they have sales quotas and different things like that. So if someone comes in and they're telling you, I'm going to open an account and it's going to soon have $300,000 wired into it, that's dollar signs for whoever's servicing that person, and they'll turn a blind eye. But they would put extra scrutiny on someone else who's coming in, like a teenager or a younger person, for example, just opening a basic account, they would not trust that person more than the person who's coming in and appears a certain way and may, you know, come off a certain way, and they will believe it and turn a blind eye to a lot of things. And that's a lot of what happened in this case. It's just a lot of people who didn't catch clear red flags, or they decided to just not pay attention to it.
Right. Okay. Well, let me give you an example. When I say, you know, look, opening it with a fake ID is easy. You're right. How did you get the fake ID?
Well, we can't talk about that on the
right,
video.
I'm saying that's the problem. Getting the fake ID, then you have to go and have all their information and a fake ID that will pass muster. That's not hard. The bank employees don't give a shit. They're not checking. Opening that account. But here's the other thing is that that bank employee isn't seeing the wires that come in. This is an automatic algorithm that detects that this account was opened 3 weeks ago and they just got a $250,000 wire sent in from another bank. Absolutely. It will shut it off
automatically.
A lot of times they'll shut it off. And I know this because I've had bank accounts where I had a real ID. I opened the bank account, and then the bank account had been open for 6 or 8 months. But I was putting in like 3,000, 5,000, 20,000, 10,000. Then one day I got a $250,000 wire, and they immediately closed off my bank and said, you have to come in the bank. Now, because it was me, and because I had a real ID in someone else's name issued by the DMV, I actually went into the bank. Now, my girlfriend was freaking out. Oh my God, don't go. I'm like, you don't understand. This person is a homeless person that lives under a bridge. He didn't complain. I have credit cards in his name. I have a car in his name. Like all of this, there's nothing, there's no way they're going to catch me. And I actually went into the bank and they said, and I asked them what happened. What's the problem? You shut off my account or you froze my account. They said, well, look, the problem is it's less than a year. You just had $250,000 wired into your account. Like money's going in your account, you're draining it. Money's going in your account, you're draining it. And I'm like, no. And I explained I owned a development company and this, and we had just that was a loan from a refinance and blah, blah. And of course they turned it right back on. They apologized, but they only did that because I was willing to walk in the bank. I'm pretty sure these guys would be terrified to walk into a bank, especially if they had a fake ID. They had a real ID from the DMV, but these guys have real victims. My victim was a homeless person that I knew wasn't going to complain. These guys are stealing like doctors' fucking driver's licenses and cops and CPAs and like, you know, insurance salesmen. Like their fear is if the bank suddenly said, you need to come in the bank, they'd be like, oh, Jesus, he might have figured it out. I'm not going. That's why I'm saying the bank is a crucial issue for these guys, because everything else they did, although it takes brains, most people could figure that out. The ballsy part is, how did you open the bank account? You know, did you have a real ID? Did you have a fake ID? Did you do it online? But I also see that, you know, obviously they're draining the accounts using, you know, ATM card, you know, like where was that card mailed?
Matt, we're going to get to that point, man. You're like,
go ahead.
Jumping the gun. I like to build this. I see. I love it. I love the conversation because I can't even get past this slide because as you say things, things are coming to mind. But the last thing I'll say on everything you said, pause real quick. Your connection was breaking up a little bit. Just want to let you know that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. I don't know if it was me, but I pay a lot of money for my internet. I'm just kidding. But I'm pretty confident in my internet. I don't know, but I'm just saying it could be on either of our sides, but it did break up a little bit.
Okay. Well, I mean, let me know if it happens again.
Got you.
And I'll repeat whatever it is. Just tell me to repeat that.
Got you. But what I was going to say is exactly the way that you walked into the bank. A lot of banks don't want to take on that reputational risk. So if you have all the necessary papers and you're a thorough enough fraudster to take the time to make the paperwork and go in, it's just the fraudsters who do not have the skill don't take that next step. So once the account is locked, it's an L. They're not going in. They're not doing anything. But I noticed from a lot of the cases that I look at, the more higher class or more what's what I'm looking for? Yeah, the more confident fraudsters, they go in and there's some really good fake IDs, especially if you bring in a fake ID that's from a different state. A lot of times it's hard for them if you get an ID from your same state, that's one thing. You're used to seeing this, your same ID looks this exact same way. But when you get an ID from a different state and you're not exactly sure how it looks, and even if you put it underneath the thing, you see the shit on it, but unless you're going and you looking at the ID guides and all that, you don't really know what the fuck you're looking at. So I can imagine a lot of times they were coming in, and as you will see with this case, that was pretty much what they were doing. They were going in and getting the things cleared. And if everything is what it is, the bank is not going to take on that risk to deny you the money if you bought everything that they're asking for to get it cleared. So even if the account was open 30 days or whatever, if they do their things right, there's a high probability that the bank will release that money.
If you're willing to walk in and everything passes muster, they got to give you that money.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying that a lot of times they'll call you and they won't. Me, I would go in because my driver's license or ID had been issued from
directly from the DMV.
The state DMV. It's a real ID.
Mm-hmm.
It's not me, but it's a real ID. It was my picture. I went in the DMV. I sat in the line. I gave them the documents. They took a picture of me. So I'm willing to go in the bank. Most people, if they order something offline, they're like, geez, like to me, I'd be concerned, but if these guys weren't, they walked in and passed scrutiny, more power to them. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yes.
Law enforcement often questions him, not because he's suspected of a crime, but because they find him fascinating. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't typically commit crime, but when I do, it's bank fraud. Stay greedy, my friends.
Support the channel. Join Matthew Cox's Patreon.
All right, so there were 9 victims that Kafani and his crew victimized, if that's the right word, in this scheme. And all of them came out of California. And a key theme that I noticed with a lot of these individuals, they were elderly. So they were elderly or had different people taking care of their affairs. So, they weren't all the way caught up in their finances. But these are all of the 9 victims here. And it's funny, even one of these victims lived on like the same block as him, apparently, which was pretty interesting. So how did they do it? How did they do their thing? Let's find out. This is one of the first victims that Mr. Mark Hicks orchestrated this scheme on. So on May 14th, 2018, between May 14, 2018 and June 2018, Hicks orchestrated a scheme to defraud by using the personal information of victim 1 to obtain a refinance loan. Specifically, on May 14, Hicks contacted individual 1, an employee at Selective Motors. This is very important. Shortly thereafter, individual 1 asked Nowcom to run a full credit history report for identity theft victim 1 without the victim's authorization, obviously. Within days of the credit report run, victim 1's personal identifying information was used to set up a fraudulent Google email address and to apply for an unauthorized American Express card. And on or about June 18, 2018, Hicks, falsely purporting to be identity theft victim 1, applied for a $785,000 refinance loan using as collateral the identity theft victim's property in Palo Alto, California. So with this, the thing that I found very interesting, and the reason I put this here is because he used this same method, and this is just a concise way of breaking down how he did his thing. After he got the information, it seems as if he had an insider that worked for a car dealership, Selective Motors, and this individual that worked at the car dealership had the ability to get people's credit report through the Nowcom system. And when I looked that up, you probably know more about that than me, but it seems to be some kind of system that's around pulling credit history and things of that nature. And like I told you when I reached out to you, I feel the main reason they were doing that was to see what kind of assets that these people had, specifically real estate. And from that credit report, you'll see what their mortgage balance is, or if they had a mortgage in the past, and you can easily look up the property values of someone's property and from there get an idea of what the equity is in that person's property, which allowed them to now go for the refinance loans. What you think about that, Matt?
No, I mean, that's exactly, I'm not saying it's exactly what happened, but it sure sounds like it's exactly what happened. It's funny. The other case I was telling you about, the guy actually would he would like drive through the neighborhood and find houses, and look, and then he would use LexisNexis and order LexisNexis reports and slowly kind of dismantle these people's entire lives until he'd eventually figure out get their social security numbers. Like, he was amazing. But these guys were being given all the hard stuff to get. He was being handed all of that stuff, and then he was going out, pulling their credit and finding out, hey, these people lived in this house for 15 years. That means that half the mortgage is paid off. And that house, close to half, let's say, and the house has been increasing by 3% a year for the past, 15 years. So this $1 million house that they live in, they now owe roughly $600,000, and that house is worth $1.5 million. So there's easily $750,000 worth of, or $785,000 worth of equity there. So they go online, they apply, they say, hey, they know how long the guy's been on his job, because when you pull your credit report, and that's what that system does, it pulls a tri-merge, it pulls all 3 credit reports and lays them all out. So they know the house, the address, they know how long the guy's been on his job, they know all that. And how hard is it, even just if you called? They could just call and say, hey, call his job. Hey, is he here? Or is he there? I'm sorry, I'm calling to verify his loan application. How long has he been there? And the receptionist will tell you, 11 years. So, I mean, I think all of that's very easy. The only problem is when they apply for that $785,000 refi, they're going to ask for, most likely they're going to ask for his last 2 years W-2s and pay stubs. Now, that's not hard to do. You can generate those very easy using QuickBooks or TurboTax or any of those software programs that are used to run businesses, and of course do your taxes too, but they also run business programs. You can easily print out W-2s and pay stubs using those programs. So once they get those, they don't even have to be accurate. They just have to be enough money to cover your ability to make that payment. That's not hard to figure out. So then they have to mail that to the bank, and all of this is done over the computer. These people don't even have to walk into the bank. It doesn't sound, most of that's done over the computer. You're not even walking in until the closing. In some states, you can do mobile closings. You can meet a notary anywhere, at a Barnes and Nobles, at a Starbucks coffee shop. You can meet them anywhere to sign those documents. You don't even have to go into the bank or the title company.
And I think that's what they played on, because if you think about it, you're leaving a random notary, and they're supposed to be thorough in verifying who they're dealing with. But at the end of the day, you're working with a random notary. You're probably getting paid like $50, or I don't know how much they get paid to do these things, to verify all these documents, and then it's just sent off. So, a lot of room. Once again, social engineering. It's like a common thing. All these things is different variations. All right, so this is another victim, and I put this here just so you can see it's the same method. Between August 7th, 2018 and August 21st, 2018, Hicks, once again, using the identifying information, this time of victim 3, to obtain a loan. Same method. He had this insider get the credit report. Then from there, they used that information to open bank accounts. And then on August 21st, they received a wire of $713,000 and some change. So you see, that was less than, what is that, like 3 weeks? That's efficient. First off, because I know when I was dealing with mortgages, it seemed like the average turnaround time for a refi, HELOC, whatever, depending on how fast everyone got the documents over, sometimes it'd be like 2 months. These guys are efficient. This is crazy. But there you go. You see that fast, 700 grand, just like that. 1, 2, 3.
Oh wait, you're this is a hold on. How long did it take them to do this?
From August 7th to August 21st. They opened the account on August 9th, and they received the wire on the 21st.
You're right. That is fast.
And that shows, because I know a lot of these brokers, they get paid. Obviously, they get paid off of these loans that they give out. So I know when I worked with this mortgage brokerage, you really, like, the big thing that the guy taught me was you always want to make sure that the individual, before you even get the process started, they have all their docs ready. So you could just submit everything. You got everything you need. So if any hiccups come up, you already have whatever is needed to get it cleared.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you don't want to have a whole bunch of stipulations.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have everything. You want a perfect package going in. It's almost like these guys. But then again, honestly, these houses are probably worth obviously in the millions.
Yeah, it's in California, I can imagine.
It's funny because the LTV, the loan to value on these homes is probably so low that the bank is desperate to close as quick as possible. And these people aren't complaining. Like if they're getting a 12% interest rate, they're probably not bitching and moaning. What do I do? I never make a payment. So they're like, yeah, the house is worth $2 million, $3 million, and I only want $700,000, and I don't care what my interest rate. So the bank thinks, yeah, well, if this is great, close this as fast as possible. Not realizing they think they're taking the customer, and the customer's taking them.
Hey, at the end of the day, it's not like they're going out of business. So tis what it is.
Well, listen, right? I guarantee you that you know who really got screwed is Old Republic Title.
Okay, why do you say that?
Because they're the title company.
Talk to me, because I don't really understand the titles and everything. Tell me
they insure against fraud. So you guys were in charge of making sure that the person that showed up is the correct person. The ID matches, and to sign all the documents. So a lot of times in my own case, let's say I stole a $200,000 from Bank of America. A lot of times Bank of America made a claim against the title company. The title company paid them back. Now, sometimes they would put up a fight and they'd split it. So Bank of America would get hit with 100,000, and then the title company would get hit with 100,000.
Interesting.
But in this case, they may just cut those checks.
And that's why I wanted you on this. Those little areas. That's so. All right, good to know. Good to know. All right, so this is where we got how they did their thing. Boom, bada bang. Get the information. Open the account. Refi. Get the money. But we're going to dive into how they did their thing a little bit more. And a lot of what they did required using people to go in and sign off on these documents as part of the closing for the loans they applied for. And that's where they did a lot of impersonations. And for example, on May 1st, and with this part here, this shows how after someone already got scammed, how they were able to realize, like, hold up, there's a refinance on my property that I have no idea about. So one of the victims received an unexpected bill for $360 from their attorney for services rendered in connection with a loan letter she prepared. Victim 1 had not asked for the attorney to prepare any loan letters. Victim 1 immediately contacted their attorney, and they determined Victim 1 was a victim of identity theft and fraud. So boom. Oh shit, what happened? I did what? Not me. Wasn't me. All right, so according to the victim's attorney, in late October 2018, unbeknownst to the victim, an individual who identified himself as the victim's son contacted the attorney by email from a telephone number to request a copy of his mother's trust. The attorney compiled and gave him a copy of the victim's trust. Based on the investigation, including a review of text messages obtained via a search warrant for a Google account tied to the number, they determined that the phone number was associated with Mr. Hicks and he used it to perpetrate fraud on victim 1. What I found the most appalling out of all this was that point number 14, that attorney should be fired like ASAP. Like, how do you just have someone call you over the phone? And I just felt that the way that they verified or tried to confirm they were speaking with the right person, they should have took a little bit more. But just like that, they called social engineering and got all this information sent over to them. But like you also said, Matt, where a lot of these guys screwed up, he was using a Google phone number that was associated with his real identity. So it doesn't seem as if he took the time to even try and cover that part up.
No. Well, you know what's funny? Here's the other question you should you want to ask yourself is this: why is it that they contacted this person's attorney to get a copy of their trust? So how do they know they have a trust? How do they know that they have an attorney? And I know the answer to that, by the way. These people's house, when they pulled the title to the house, obviously, and they found out that the house was in a trust. On the trust, it says who prepared the trust. So they then contacted the attorney for the trust and got the attorney to write a letter saying that they were allowed to place a lien on the title for the trust. So they needed that letter. Why they didn't move on to another victim, like, that's guts. To me, this is gutsy. As soon as I saw that, I was like, man, I don't want to get an attorney involved. This attorney might make a phone call. They might call the victim. They may call, like, this guy calls up as his son. The attorney may have said, listen, I can't talk to you about your mother's trust or your father's trust.
That's what
they may have said, before they even called him back or took the phone call, they may have called them and said, listen, your son is on the phone. He wants a copy of the trust. Are you okay with that? It would have been over right there. But they didn't. Just like you said, the attorney, what are you doing? Why would you send him this? Is he the trustee? And if he is the trustee, you've probably spoken with him before.
Exactly. And that's why I said at the start of this whole scheme was successful because there was so many people who were just not doing their job correctly, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Because it's like just social engineering, and it's like at the easiest. And I didn't put all of the parts in it, but he did a lot of fake calls and like changing up his voice and stuff. It's hilarious. But even with that, his first slip up was the phone number. But let's move on. So with this same victim, December 2018, the individual claiming to be the victim's son, which was Hicks, again contacted the attorney by email and said the mother was trying to get a refinance loan. As part of the approval process, the son said the loan broker needed a letter from the attorney's office stating that that his mother was capable of handling her financial affairs.
Oh, did I call it? I didn't even see this, and I knew that's what happened.
And that's why I said, Matt, at the beginning, you were jumping the gun. Like, damn,
nice.
Give your boy a chance. And that's why you're on this.
Oh, wow. I'm impressing myself.
You kind of spoiled the whole video from the first fucking slide. I just want to let you know that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
But let me read through this, and I just want to tell you the part that really was just like, wow. But the mother was capable of handling her financial affairs and understood the loan was a high-cost loan, like you said as well. The number he provided was Hicks' phone number and said he could be reached at that number. The victim's attorney sent an email to the victim's son with the letter that he requested. So just like that. So what stood out to me? You're a whole attorney. You're like a whole attorney, right? And someone calls you saying they need a letter stating their mother is capable of handling their financial affairs. I don't know the exact regulations behind it. I think it's taking advantage of vulnerables or whatever the hell it is. But right there, that's a red flag. That is a huge red flag where they should have been like, hold up, this is a little weird, this letter they asked me. And then it says for a high cost loan. This attorney was just collecting whatever fee they collect, and I don't think they really were doing their job thorough. And
no,
I don't know, it's a little crazy.
The son is saying he needs a letter saying that I need you to write a letter saying that my mother or whoever is is capable of making their own financial decisions for the mortgage broker. Well, here's the thing, like, why didn't this attorney call the victim? Or maybe, I guess maybe they knew who the victim was, and it's like, oh yeah, I know your mother. Yeah, no, she's perfectly capable, but still, why not make that call?
Yeah, if you're able to handle your own affairs, why didn't she call on her own?
First of all, you don't know who the son is. Like,
Crazy.
I know your mother, but I don't know, and she is capable of making her own financial decisions, but I don't know you. Let me call your mother. And if she is capable of making her own financial decisions, then why am I talking to you? But listen, in my case, I can tell you right now, in my case, there were many times when people would see things that were clearly wrong, that they should have done things, and they just kind of were like, yeah, that makes sense. And they just kept going. It's like, you could have picked up the phone.
And, you know, a lot of my viewers, I have a wide variety of viewers. Some seem to be scammers, some interested, but I also have a lot of professionals, fraud professionals who watch my videos. Guys, we got to do something about this. We got to like have a class for these attorneys on how to spot red flags and mortgage fraud, because clearly there's you know what? Hire Matt.
I wrote a red flags course when I was locked up. Actually,
guys,
a federal red flags course.
I'm gonna put this on LinkedIn, and we'll split whatever you make 50-50. Deal? No, just kidding, just kidding. But I am gonna put it on LinkedIn because like this is ridiculous. All right, let's keep it moving because it gets crazier, Matt. And I highlighted it here because I ain't trying to read all of this. As part of the scheme, Hicks began recruiting co-conspirators with one of the co-defendants, Dioncis Costello, who recruited co-defendants Suzanne Areola Martin and Leif Crochode, who were both homeless at the time and addicted to heroin and methamphetamine, to impersonate victims and sign and notarize fraudulent loan documents. Areola Martin impersonated victim 2's wife. Hicks admits that he obtained a fraudulent driver's license in the name of victim 2 and victim 3, but with Schroeder and Areola Martin's pictures, and using the IDs along with the fraudulent email, Google Voice, and bank account he and others had created, applied for a $250,000 loan in the victim's name. So that's who he used, Matt, to go in and sign these documents. I was
wondering that. How did a bunch of young black guys go in as older, as old people, but apparently it's the homeless people.
And there's a lot of cases that I see involving homeless people, and sometimes they're being manipulated in a way where it's clear that they're not aware of what's going on. But these two folks here, they was all the way with the shits because
and
he used them multiple times.
He had to clean them up.
I would hope so.
I mean, they're homeless. He's got to probably take them, get a motel room, clean them up, get them better clothes, like, scrub them down and get them presentable. I mean, and then
I would imagine they get all this money, they're going to just get more drugs. It's like a vicious cycle.
Oh, they're not getting it. They didn't get $250. They got $1,000, $500. I had a guy sign. Listen, I had a guy one time, he signed for probably $300,000 or $400,000 worth of mortgages. I paid him $1,500.
Wow.
Same thing. Fake ID. He was a drug addict. Fake ID. Walked into first closing. He did it for $500. The second one, using a fake ID, knew what he was doing. Second time, he did it for $1,000. He saw the money that I was getting. He saw it. He saw $100,000 minimum of checks going to different people. So the next time he said, I'm not doing it for $500, bro. I said, I understand. He goes, this time I want $1,000.
Ooh, hey.
Whoa,
big shot caller. Hey, moving on up.
I said, that's excessive, but okay.
Oh boy. All right, let's keep it going because you got to see how he used these individuals. So back to the story. So the same individual now. On December 13th, 2018, a notary was contacted by a mobile notary service, just like you said, Matt.
Oh,
you looking like Kobe in the fourth quarter, man. You can't miss.
I'm so shocked at this that I mean, you know, I like to think I know what I'm doing, obviously, but it's always
this
nice
is
to
this is
be.
why I wanted to do this video with you, and it's going great. All right, so boom. So contacted a mobile notary service and asked victim one to schedule a document notarization. Once again, the email included Hicks' phone number and an investigator from the ACDAO, I don't know what that is, interviewed the notary, who stated that the first time the notary called this number, it was answered by a female. On the second occasion, it was answered by a male. On December 13th, 2018, Notary One telephoned Hicks' phone number, and the number was once again answered by a male who said he was driving his mother to meet the notary. Later that day, Notary One met with the woman claiming to be the victim and notarized loan documents for her. Notary One stated that she obtained 2 fingerprints from the individual claiming to be the victim for her notary journal and took a photo of the individual's driver's license. This investigator examined the driver's license and identified the picture on it was the individual that he recruited, Miss Suzanne Areola Martin, and the fingerprints from the notary book were submitted. And at the point of when they wrote this paperwork, it was pending, but I can only assume that it ended up being a match.
Yeah.
So there you go, Matt. They're sending this person in, and even though this once again, this notary saw some red flags, they ran with it, and it's clearly a fake ID because it had the picture on it. So either the ID was really good or this notary ain't shit at checking IDs. I don't know. But in my experience, I know a lot of notaries aren't doing things correctly. Like it's crazy. Sometimes you give them a document it's already signed, like, hey, notarize this. And it's like, are you going to ask for my ID? Oh, yeah. Let me get your ID. Like, this is insane. Wow. Seen it multiple times. But let's keep on moving. This is another occasion where he used these individuals. On March 8th, 2019, a second notary met with a woman claiming to be victim one to notarize documents related to a North Coast financial loan. Notary two's husband went with her. Notary two and her husband were interviewed, and they both stated that, and they both met the woman identifying herself to be victim one. So her and her husband both went in and they met this person that they were doing the notaries for. At the time of doing the notaries, Notary 2 said that she was suspicious that victim 1's ID was fake. But her husband told her, you always worrying about stuff. Don't worry about it. Just notarize the documents. I'm trying to go watch the game, lady. Just kidding. But her husband told her not to worry about it, and they notarized the loan documents. Notary 2 and her husband were separately shown double-blind photo lineups, and both identified Areola Martin as the individual who signed the notary documents and showed them the ID for victim 1 and showed the thumbprints, and that was submitted. And but they were unable to find a match on the thumbprints, but the pictures matched. They felt the ID was fake, and clearly it turned out that it clearly was a scam. But once again, an example of how easy it was, despite them feeling nervous and seeing different red flags, they just went with it anyway. And I'm sure there's something in the notary handbook that says you shouldn't have another person that's not related to the transaction in it, like for security purposes or something like that. But her husband's just sitting there like, come on, lady, let's go. But yeah, what do you think of that, Matt?
I wonder why she felt it like it was a fake ID. I wonder what the issue was. But keep in mind that, you know, I don't. It's banks and notaries. It's funny because like it's not like they have like extensive classes on how to spot a fake. And honestly, a lot of the fakes, like there are some shitty websites out there that they provide really crappy fake IDs, but there are some that are amazing. The quality that you can get from a fake ID online is amazing. So, you know, I don't know. I know one time I had somebody go into a bank to sign for a loan, and the person at the title company looked at her ID, and it was her picture on the ID. And she looked at the ID, looked at the picture and said, this picture is not you. It doesn't look like you, but it was her. It was genuinely her picture. But the person wouldn't refuse to give her her check. It was like a $200,000 check. Refused to give her the check, said, I'm going to make some phone calls, let her sign the papers, had the check there, but wouldn't give it to her. Said, I'll call you when I look into this a little bit more. And she left. But everything, like, it wasn't that it was a bad fake ID. It was even her picture. She just got suspicious. And the fact that this woman was suspicious, she probably should have just said, hey, listen, something's wrong. I'm not doing this, and gone somewhere else.
Or what I would think is, like, if you're suspicious, but you don't want to make that call, like, I understand you don't want to offend anybody, maybe ask for additional sources of ID. Like, hey, do you have a secondary, something else? Because
that's even a better idea. Do you have a driver's license? Or no, I'm sorry. Do you have a credit card with your name on it? Do you have your social security card? The problem with you had done that with me is I would have been like, yeah, I got 3 credit cards. I got this. I got my voter's registration. Like, I never went in with one. I always went in. I call it what they call it, pocket litter. Where you have other little pieces of litter of documents, other documents that also have. But yeah, I hear you. That's probably a really good idea. You know, sometimes I just don't feel comfortable. So the problem is what, you know, look, what if she said, I don't feel comfortable making that call, and then said, I'm not going to do this, and left. And then they called another notary. The other notary went in. The other notary signed. It wasn't a problem. So next time the mortgage broker or the lender orders a notary, they end up saying, we're not going to use this one woman. She gave us a hard time before. And it was a legit person. It was a legit. So I can see her kind of being like, I'll go ahead and do, well, my husband says it's her. I'm going to sign.
And that extra part that you said, I would imagine a lot of these notaries, because I know people who do notaries, you're not getting paid a lot of money to do these notaries. So it's usually like people who just want to get some extra money. And if you're pairing with this brokerage or whichever company that's sending you out, they don't want you giving their clients a hard time. So it's like, hey, look, they have everything. We verified everything. Do the notary. So just like you said, it's a lot of pressure that they were getting.
Yeah, she's got a driver's license. What are you doing?
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, everyone just wants this loan to close because that's when everyone gets paid.
Correct.
All right. So nice. Okay. So here, just wanted to call out how many times he used these not victims, these co-conspirators to pose as different victims. So you got victim 7 and victim 8. They were a couple. And they were sent in, same game plan. Notary stamped the documents, and this time it was for a wire for $300,000 that was sent to a bank account that they recently opened. So that scam went from September 11th to October 1st. Still, and all their things are like within 3 weeks.
Wow! And you know what's funny too? Look at how diverse. You understand? Do you understand that every bank has different procedures? So this guy is hitting banks across the spectrum. It's not like he figured out Bank of America's underwriting guidelines and stuck with screwing over Bank of America. He's hitting Citi. Look, what is this? Was it Citigroup?
CIT. I don't think that's Citi. Yeah. That's
sorry. CIT. And he's hitting. Is this? Oh, Coast to Coast. The other one was some other. Every one of these is a different bank.
And isn't that crazy? Each time he's more or less doing the same play. And like you said, we're getting the accounts opened, sending in these the drug addicts that he was sending in, and these employees were falling for it. And somehow,
$470,000 on that one. 785 on the other one, or over 750, over 700 on the other one. I mean, these aren't little licks, bro.
Yep. And I just want to say,
money.
If you have, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not the most knowledgeable person on fraud. Like, I learn a lot of stuff from just reading and speaking to people like you, but and I mean that in the most respectful way. That kind of sounds but this shows it's very easy to do fraud if you just know what to do. But as easy as it is, as you can see with this, you're gonna slip up somewhere because something's gonna be tied back to you. That's a common theme I notice in a lot of these things. And these folks get greedy because I would imagine if you probably did 1 or 2 licks, he probably no one would know about it. But you keep doing it over and over, and like you said, you get cocky, and nothing lasts forever. And it's like, what the hell were you doing with that? Well, we're gonna find out what the hell he was doing with that money. Let's keep going and going. So how they cashed out? Dollar. Oh wow, I didn't notice that wasn't U.S. currency in the back.
Oh, it's not.
We'll
It
keep that
works.
in. That's a blooper. But how did they cash out? Because it's always one thing to do the scheme. You get the money. But just like you were saying at the start of this, like how were they getting the money? Da, 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 da. All right, so let's see. Proceeds for the fraud. And this is also where they slipped up a lot. On multiple occasions, Hicks would contact gold dealers by phone, altering his voice and impersonating the victims to order gold bars and gold coins, which he had delivered to a trailer home in Vallejo, California, owned by the sister of DeMarcus Hicks' spouse. So this is someone that he's related to.
That's stupid. But the gold, laundering the money through gold, good idea.
You know, and I'm going to kind of jump the gun a little bit because there's a couple of cases I looked over. Whenever it comes to gold, I noticed the feds or whoever's investigating it, they always do the same thing when it comes to gold shipments. They get in contact with whoever's shipping the gold. They tell them, send something different. They send them something. Then the people call and get all pissed off. And it's like, oh, that's not what I ordered. Da, da. So then they send it back. And I always imagine, why do they do that extra step? And I can only imagine it is to just like confirm for sure that this person is actually doing this. But I noticed they always do that. It's at least 3-4 cases I covered where they did some kind of thing like that. But anyway, so Hicks ordered $964,000 in gold bars and coins through the U.S. Gold Bureau, and at least another $207,000 from Gold Line Inc. Hicks also admits to spending parts of the proceeds from the $241,000 loan from victim 6 via ATM withdrawals and other ATM card purchases. Matt, most of what I cover on my things is check fraud. And a common thing that a lot of check fraudsters just like, why did you do that? ATM withdrawals. Do you not know there's cameras around every single ATM? In the ATM, it's all up in your face.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You should wear a you gotta wear
like a mask.
A mask like you've got. But that mask is actually, what's the name of the
Guy Fawkes? Which one?
That's a Guy Fawkes mask.
Oh, the one I have on.
Yeah, Notorious uses Guy Fawkes.
You know, I never knew the name. I always just called this the Zorro mask because I think in Zorro, that's when I first saw this mask.
Look up Guy Fawkes. They actually have Guy Fawkes Day. He actually was a member of an organization that was going to blow up the building of Parliament with Parliament in it.
All right, let me take this mask off.
In the UK. In the UK.
Crazy.
It's a great story. I mean, it's super interesting. They still have, to this day, they have Guy Fawkes Day. And that mask is also used in the movie V for Victory.
I said Zorro. That's where I saw it from. But I also got the Deadpool mask here. And to be honest, the issue I have is I can't see through these shits.
Yeah, I like the Guy Fawkes one. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. We're talking about a whole different thing. So also, DeMarcus Hicks and co-defendant Tyrone Jones, who remained a fugitive at the point of writing this, I don't know if that's still accurate, took at least some of the gold coins and bars and exchanged them for cash at a jewelry store. Some of that cash, wrapped in distinctive colored rubber bands, was then deposited into a safe deposit box in the name of Hicks' mother and sister, getting mommy involved in his dirty work. Law enforcement later searched the safe deposit box and seized $484,920 in cash that Hicks admitted was part of his fraud scheme. One thing I could say, at least he tried to stash some money away, at least. You know, maybe he was looking, you know, if things go south for his mother and sister, at least they got something to go to. But clearly they were able to track those gold purchases right back to what he did. So it wasn't that effective. All right, so so here you see some of the transactions that he did, wires in which he was purchasing gold. You have one on December 2019, 280 ounces of gold coins for $400,000. Some ridiculous things. And you got more over here. Some of the big ones: 12/17/2018, $144,000, 56,000, 155,000. They were going all the way in, and these were all transactions. And like you said, I don't know how the bank were allowing all these things to go through. And even with dealing with gold, I would imagine a lot of banks would find that as like a risky thing that they would want a new business to be dealing with, or a new individual, not even a business.
I'm not even sure that the bank knows necessarily where those wires are going. But here's the thing about gold is that typically gold dealers charge between around 1.5% to 2%. So if you're buying $100,000 worth of gold, you can buy bars. Usually bars have stamps on them, though. They'll have like a serial number. Not that they're tracked. They're not tracked. But you can use that serial number to say, hey, you did take a picture in case it's stolen. But it's not tracked by the federal government. So, but you can buy bullion. Bullion doesn't even have a serial number. So you could say, I want $100,000 in bullion, and they'll mail it to you through Federal Express or through a courier. They'll give it to you. You sign for it. You can then turn around and go to another gold dealer and say, hey, by the way, I have this gold. I've been in my family for 10 or 15 years. My father gives us a couple pieces every single year. I'd like to sell it to you. Then they'll charge you 1.5 or 2% to buy that gold from you, and they'll cut you a check. So it's like for 3 to 4%, you've laundered your money. Like, so I get the gold makes sense. Selling it to a jewelry store. I guess he didn't know where. You would think he did know where gold bullion, where gold dealers were, because he's buying them from gold dealers.
Exactly.
But I guess maybe the jewelry store. Maybe the jewelry store was willing to just give him cash.
Exactly.
Maybe that was
impatience.
Yeah, because there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, that you could go and give it to him, say, hey, cut me a check to my corporation. Like your mother or somebody opens a corporation for you, and you cut these checks to the corporation for the mom, whatever. There's ways to do it. They don't know that, obviously. They were getting somebody to buy it for cash. Who knows what they were giving them on the dollar. But so I can see the gold or any precious metals for that matter, even diamonds.
But as we will soon see, a common red flag was the accounts they were using to do these purchases were tied eventually right back to their actual identities with the phone numbers and the addresses. And you're going to see, let's keep it going. So their downfall, whoop, whoop. Guess who's calling the police? Downfall, as always. And if you watch this far,
girlfriend.
What? Oh, no. No, not the girl. Well, you keep calling it out, but what I was going to say is, if you watch this far, Matt already done called out everywhere that they went wrong. But
just the stupid mistake of the phone, right?
There's several, but for the sake of just tying this all together, it started getting investigated on July 2019. The FBI began investigating a mortgage loan fraud conspiracy targeting individuals in San Francisco Bay and the LA areas. The investigation started with a referral that they received from the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, and now involves the Secret Service and Los Angeles County's District Attorney. The evidence that they got from all the things that they found developed points to Hicks as the ringleader of this scheme. And as we mentioned, Hicks, 40, is an Oakland rapper and musician with an extensive criminal record dating back to 1995. So a lot of the things that they investigated ended up going right back to Hicks. And with the way he was doing his thing, as successful as he was, he made a lot of clear, mistakes. So let's see. First, this investigator obtained and reviewed applications and bank statements for the accounts that were open. The documents used to open the accounts, which victim 1 has confirmed she did not authorize, included the actual social security number, date of birth, and a mailing address in Richmond, California. Remember that. Gold purchases with proceeds of this and other frauds being perpetrated by Hicks and others were sent to this Richmond address. So there was a common link to this Richmond address. On February 2019, the mailing address of both the Bank of America account and victim one's name was changed to an address in Vallejo, California. And if you remember earlier, that's where they had that trailer park home or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Where multiple shipments of gold coins and bars were purchased. So once I find the job that a lot of these investigators do very interesting, because this is the part that I like, just connecting the dots. And they're probably like, oh shit, I can imagine them like laughing their ass off when they start making these connections. But proceeds from this fraud conspiracy have been shipped here and after, and then they gave the residents a name, the Gold Delivery Residence. So now they got it confirmed this is a target location. On December 2018, a $300,000 mortgage loan was taken out through North Coast Financial with victim one's properties in Oakland as collateral. In March 2019, a second loan was taken out for $250,000 using their second residence as collateral. On the corresponding loan application used for both loans, the applicant's name was listed as victim one, that's supposed to be with Hicks' phone number as the number that was on the application and that same Richmond address. So even though everything was in this victim's name, he put his phone number and his address on it. So, that's clearly a screw up.
Yeah.
And once the loan closed, the loan proceeds were wire transferred to these bank accounts that were opened. So you see all the connections. You got the two addresses that they commonly used on the bank accounts that they opened, and that they also had gold shipments sent to, and the phone numbers, everything. So let's keep going, because there's more to how they got caught slipping. Based on the investigation, including a review of text messages obtained from a search warrant, they determined that 510 number belonged to Hicks, and we saw that earlier. Also, the Bank of America account, one of the Bank of America accounts that they opened, had that phone number associated with it, and they obtained subscriber records for the phone number from AT&T, and they saw that number is an active account associated with Hicks' mother. Once again, and it's so sad. I can imagine your mom don't even know I could imagine his mom wasn't even aware, and she just wanted to see the best for her son. And look what he's doing. Like, come on, y'all. Your moms love you so much. It's crazy.
You know what kills me is that, let's say, so he's using his sister's, brother-in-law's address or whatever. What cracks me up about that is that people are like, yeah. I would talk to these guys in prison. They go, yeah, I had the credit cards or whatever mailed to this address, but it wasn't my address. I'm like, well, whose address was it? Oh, it was my sister's, it was my sister's stepbrother or my sister's, whatever, baby's daddy, his sister. And it's like, okay, now wait a minute. Does that person know you? Yeah, they know me, but it's not me. So when the FBI shows up and knocks on their door and shows them a picture of you and says, do you know this man? Do you know what? Most of these guys think that because this guy is a plumber and has never been in trouble, they think he's going to say, no, man, I don't know who that is. The problem is that guy, that plumber, is a decent citizen. And a decent citizen, when the FBI knocks on the door and asks, do you know who this person is? They say, oh, wow, that's my sister's, or that's my kid's mother's brother. Yeah, I know him. That's Hicks. Like, because they don't think they think I'm helping law enforcement. I'm not doing anything wrong. And they must be looking for him for some reason. Like, the average citizen helps. So for you to think the average citizen is going to lie to law enforcement for you, you're crazy.
Yep.
You're better off using one of your co-defendants. You're better off, right? You know what I'm saying?
And on the flip side of that, when you do have those, it's a couple of things. And this is what I always wonder when people use different individuals to cash out on. It puts that person in a position, especially in a lot of the cultures that these people that these folks come from. It's like, is this person going to snitch now?
Right.
Because that's a common thing. It's like, oh, is this? But you're putting this person in a tight position. So now if they don't snitch, if the feds have a warrant on you and they're questioning you, 9 times out of 10, they already know the answer.
Yes.
They already know the answer. So now if you lie, that's going to be held against you. And I've seen it in many paperwork where they lied in an investigation or whatever it is. There's penalties that come with that. So now you putting this person in a position to get involved in your nonsense, and they now have to, are they going to snitch? If you ask me, say what you want. If I had nothing to do with that, like Matt just said, I'm talking.
That's
but
it.
If I was in on it, and this is what a lot of people who do fraud, I wish I could ask them. It's one thing to do fraud, make money, get away with it, have fun, do whatever you got to do. But when that shit comes crashing down, what are you going to do? Are you going to tell, or are you going to take the rap?
Listen, everybody says, I ain't saying nothing. But the truth is, when they tell you you're about to do 6 years, trust me, 6 or 10. First of all, they're not telling you 6. They're going to tell you 15 or 20. You're going to be scared to death. You're going to get scared to death, and you're going to say, yo, bro, look, I'll tell you the other guy, because, you know, I didn't know it was going to be all this, man. I barely made any money at all. I can't. And your lawyer is going, man, you better tell them you're about to do 15 years. The truth is, you're probably only facing 6 or 7, but it doesn't matter. 6 or 7 is too much for 200,000 for making 200,000 or 300,000, because this guy Hicks, even though it ends up probably being a couple $1 million, it doesn't matter that it's a couple $1 million. He had to share that with a whole bunch of other people.
And just so I can move on from this, a common thing a lot of people in my comment section do or does, pardon me, I'm trying to fix my, that's why a lot of my videos are scripted. The way I be talking is a little off the wall sometimes. But anyway, a common thing that a lot of people in my comment section do, and I blocked a lot of these fools because they were saying some wild shit, is like, oh, that's nothing, 4 years, 3 years, 5 years. But I'm telling them, first of all, if you do the math, just like Matt said, they didn't get all that money. They had to split it with multiple people. And then if you do the math, for the amount of years you spend in jail for the crime you did, you probably didn't even get to spend all that money. A lot of it was probably seized, taken away. You might as well have got a job at Home Depot or McDonald's or something, because you would have made more money.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be in legal trouble. But you want this fast life, and y'all's is not thinking about it right, because you think, oh, they went to prison and they just have all this money when they come out. No, it doesn't work that way. Like, you see this guy Hicks, he was in and out of prison for over like 10 years since 1995. That's ridiculous.
And I don't know if you noticed this or not, but they got the money that was in his mom's name. They got the money that was, trust me, all that money that you stick in your mom's name and those properties that you bought in your stepsister's name and your buddy's name. Listen, they're going to come and they're going to get all that. They're going to take it all. Well, no, it's in my mom's name. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. They'll take that shit from your mother in a heartbeat. They don't care about your mom. Like, and you're not, first of all, as they're investigating, you're about to plead guilty. They're going to come to you and say, you got to sign over this. You got to sign over this. Oh, I ain't signing over that. Okay, well, guess what? You're not pleading guilty. You're getting 15 years. You're not getting 7. They start going, oh, man. Listen. And then those guys, 4 years, that's nothing. Oh, okay. Well, you must not have kids or a wife that loves you. Everybody's a gangster till they're sitting in that visitation room with their fucking wife and their 3 kids crying their eyes out going, how are we going to survive without you? And 2 years into their 4-year bid, which they didn't care about, your wife's banging somebody else. You got the divorce papers. She barely lets you talk to your kids. Your kids are calling somebody else daddy. Oh, hey, daddy, my new daddy just brought us to Disney World. My new daddy. Yeah, they're all gangsters till that happens.
Man, that was very real with you, and I'm happy you shared that, Matt, because I'm a big fan of learning from your mistakes, but I'm an even bigger fan of learning from other people's mistakes. And I think what you just shared there, I think a lot, because let's be real, a lot of people watch my channel because they think I'm teaching them fraud. I'm teaching you how to end up in jail, prison. Like, don't think I'm doing this and I'm a regular guy. I don't do none of this shit. But just like Matt said, you got to see what comes with it. And you might be a young person now, and you're probably not thinking about your future that way, but you always learn from other people's experiences, because you might not get as lucky. And if you could learn from where someone else screwed up for you to alter the way you live your life, you got to take that. You got to always take that into consideration and appreciate when people share things like that, because you never know what you're going to go through. Never say never. But if you could think back and be like, oh, I heard Matt said No, it ain't worth it. It ain't worth it.
Listen, man, I'm 50 years old. I got out at 50 years old, starting my life over at 50. I walked out of the halfway house at 50, starting my life over with nothing at 50. And listen, honestly, I'm about as sharp as you can get. And I wasn't sharp enough. You're going to screw up. You're going to screw up. I know the banking industry inside and out, real estate inside and out, and I still got grabbed multiple times. So if you think you're so sharp, do it. Do it. You know, like, you know, I mean, put in, as soon as you get there, put a cop out in, try and get a two-man cell, join the softball team. You're going to be here a while. Go ahead and sign up for vocational tech, teach a GED class. You know, you're going to be here. Like, settle in, start reading a book series that you like. You're going to do some time.
Oh, man. I'm getting like, I don't even know the word, but just thinking about that, I don't want to spend a week in prison. I don't care. I don't care what nobody says.
It's
but all right, that's a good little conversation. But yeah, one of the victims that was associated with the phone number that he was using on these applications and loans, the mailing address associated with the number was an address of Hicks' mother once again, and the residence is on the same block as both the victims' residences. So pretty much his mom lived on the same block as one of the people that he did one of these fraudulent loans on. And when I was looking through the paperwork, I don't think I snipped this exact part, but I think it might have been this victim. They knew he was doing this, and he kind of tipped the FBI as to what was going on. So I don't know if that's probably what led to everything, but I think he was hip that this guy is doing all this fraud in the neighborhood.
I mean, Hicks's mom must be doing pretty well. She's living in the neighborhood where they're getting loans on houses for $750,000. Like,
interesting.
No, these were small. There's probably the smaller ones, but even then, $300,000-$400,000. But it's California.
That too. And with the way property value shot up, someone could have easily owned a home in the 90s, you know?
Yeah.
And then now suddenly it's just worth all these hundreds of thousands, probably even million, depending where you at. But with that, another place where Hicks screwed up: text messages, emails, and IG, Instagram, linked to Hicks' loan fraud conspiracy. And this is what I like to see here. And just like you said, they're going to find you, especially now with all this technology and location tracking. They obtain account information, location data, and text message exchanges from Google Inc., directly from Google, for Hicks' phone number. On November 17, Hicks' phone sent a text message that said, "We good, I just need a granny." That's when they were looking to recruit Miss Suzanne Areola. He was like, "Everything is good, we just need somebody to send in there." Based on the timing of this conversation, I believe Hicks here is referring to the need for an older woman to impersonate victim one, who is an elderly woman. In fact, less than a month later, that's when they attached Areola, who is age 69, on that heron, impersonated victim one to do the notary. Then on March 14th, 2019, there was the following exchange of text messages between Hicks' phone number and another phone number with a 213 area code.
Sheesh.
Let me get into my impersonation bag for this. All right, here we go. I blanked out the bad words, the really bad words.
All right.
Yo, that's fucked up. I didn't get my chop off that 142 that was in that account. No matter what the situation, old girl signed for that shit. What the fuck is a block? Nah, I'm talking about all that Neiman Marcus and all that other shit I heard. It was blocked. I want my chop off that 142 that was in there. All that shopping Smurf was doing came out to 142. Bruh, I deal with my bro. So here, looks like one of the co-conspirators that they was dealing with was mad that they didn't get their cut. And just like Matt said, all the money's not going to the head of the scheme. I mean, everyone's getting a cut. And one thing I've learned, there's no honor amongst thieves. Sometimes you're dealing with a scammer and you don't even know that scammer is scamming you to do the scam for them. And then they can always say, "Oh, this didn't work, that didn't work." In reality, they made all this money and they just cutting you out. And at the end of the day, many times you're being used as a mule or whatever it is. But based on the investigation, when they looked into this text, they know that Hicks' brother is Smurf. And they also know that someone using the funds from the Bank of America account in victim one's name made approximately $74,000 in purchases at different stores in San Francisco area, including Neiman Marcus, Macy's, Best Buy, Nordstrom, Sunglass Hut, Target, Barney's, Uggs, and Guitar Center. Ding, 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 ding.
The music lover.
Yeah. Well, he was a musician or a rapper. So
right.
Probably buying different things for his studio, trying to get lit. But it seems like he was a better fraudster than a rapper, because I don't know him for rap. But anyway, the purchases were made from approximately February 19th to February 28th, 2019. So within that, was like a week window, $74,000 in debit card or whatever. Yeah, I would imagine debit card purchases from all these stores. And homeboy is mad. He's like, "Did you get me some Gucci? Did you get me some Prada? Am I getting some Balenciaga or Balenciaga?" I don't know. I made a video yesterday on a scheme where they were stealing credit cards and buying luxury goods that they then resold. So I'm hip to some of these designer names: Dior, Chanel. Anyway, let's keep it going.
All right.
On February 2019 alone, $31,800 was withdrawn from victim one's fraudulently opened bank account with Bank of America in ATM transactions. They reviewed the ATM surveillance videos, because there's videos everywhere, and identified Hicks' brother as the individual withdrawing the money in at least one transaction. In a separate transaction, they were able to identify an individual they believe is Hicks' brother's girlfriend and roommate as individuals withdrawing the funds. So once again, cashing out, caught on camera. And I can imagine, and this is once again using somebody else to do your dirty work. You give them the PIN number. Hey, just go do this for me. I'm gonna give you a cut. But this person doesn't know any better. They're just seeing, I'm about to get $500.
They get that knock. Is this you withdrawing all this money out of an ATM? Who's that with you? Who gave you the ATM card? Oh my God, that's my boyfriend's brother.
Yeah.
He's running some kind of a scam.
I didn't know. I swear, I'm innocent.
I didn't realize.
But before that, they were on Instagram doing the money phone, and just like, hey, made it. Just being silly. Anyways, without reading all of this, y'all can pause it and read it. I've been doing a lot of reading. But they also linked his IP address that he used to do transactions on one of the fraudulent bank accounts. And they had his IP address and they tied it to the different things he was doing, the different logins. And I could tell you one thing, banks, from when you log into online banking, they know what device you use, the IP address, the location, they know all of that. So they got all that information and they were able to tie it with a service address in Antioch, California, that they identified was being used as Hicks' residence. So all these IP addresses was associated with his residence. I know this was Hicks' residence from U.S. probation records and from physical surveillance of the address, during which they saw two vehicles registered to, once again, Hicks' mama. These vehicles were a 2007 Cadillac Escalade on 22s, parked in the driveway, and a 2012 Nissan Sentra. That's a very efficient car, parked on the curb. I also saw a 2005 Acura sedan, parked on the driveway, registered to Hicks' girlfriend. In addition, this address was provided as Hicks in an anonymous tip to the FBI. So I think that's where I saw it, where that maybe someone in the community that got scammed was like, hey, it's him who's doing it. Right. And like you said, there's a bunch of this. You won't believe how many innocent law-abiding citizens there are out there. Ain't everybody on this not snitching stuff. Everybody wants to have a nice community where people's doing things the right way, and they will gladly work with law enforcement to get you shut down. But with that being said, all these IP addresses was tracked to him. They were doing surveillance. They saw it was his, and it gets worse. A lot of the gold that was being delivered was being sent to this gold delivery residence address in Vallejo, and they obtained 3 audio recordings of telephone calls made from Hicks' phone number, where he was claiming to be victim 1, attempting to conceal and change his voice. They listened to these calls and they believe that Hicks, whose voice they believe the person the person impersonating. Person who was doing the impersonations voice was Hicks because they recognized it from watching public videos on his Instagram. So they were all the way up in his social media, verified his voice against his Instagram. Also, and this is where I was speaking about the controlled delivery. On January 28th, the FBI did a controlled delivery for gold that was ordered on January 22nd. Did I say July 28th? Let me start that over. Jones was involved in a controlled delivery for gold that was sent to the residence in Vallejo. On January 28th, the FBI conducted a controlled delivery for the order that was paid on January 22nd for $24,000. However, the FBI asked them to send, instead of gold bars, to send silver bars that were worth $300. So that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
The shipment was sent through USPS, and the delivery was video and audio recorded. The surveillance was set up around the exterior of this gold residence in Vallejo, and before and after the package was delivered. Prior to the delivery, a car registered to Hicks' brother, being driven by a black male, was seen dropping off Jones at the gold delivery residence. Later that day, they observed the same vehicle arriving at target location 2, the residence of Hicks' brother. So all these connections they were making. They reviewed corresponding video and identified the person who received the packages as Jones, who was sitting outside of the residence when the delivery was made. Just like you said once again, Matt. Jones identified himself as David and said he lived at the residence and signed for it. No ID was requested, so he did not produce any identification. So controlled delivery, they were on to him, they knew what they were doing, and they confirmed it right there. Here it shows where, let me just read it.
I've checked probation.
They checked probation records for Jones and confirmed that he currently lived at target location 2. The controlled delivery of the silver bars and coins made by the U.S. Gold Bureau in January 2020 was observed being taken by Jones once again at target location 2. Hicks' brother, who was captured on ATM surveillance withdrawing funds from the Bank of America account in the victim's name, also lives at target location 2. As does his girlfriend, who was also captured on ATM surveillance withdrawing funds from the same account. FBI agents assigned to the investigation observed vehicles 1 and 3 at target location 1 on multiple occasions. Most recently, on February 1st, 2020, they were told by Hicks' probation officer that vehicle 2, a 2015 Mercedes-Benz, was kept in the garage at location number 1. So all these connections between Kafani, Hicks, Jones, his sister's boyfriend, all these connections, and the FBI was investigating and surveillancing all of this, including the ATMs. This is the funny part where, let me make sure. Okay, so this is the funny part where they also confirmed one of these vehicles was associated with Hicks, specifically the Mercedes-Benz, because he was on a Facebook Live broadcast, and Hicks can be heard bragging about having a Mercedes 550 and the inside of what appears to be vehicle 2 visible. Additionally, a 2015 Mercedes-Benz S550 is registered to Hicks' mother and to a foundation, the Take a Step Foundation, that is tied to Hicks. So he was getting flashy on Instagram or Facebook, didn't even notice. The feds is watching, and they're like, oh, yeah, he definitely owns this car. Look at this guy. From a previous investigation of Hicks.
I knew a guy one time that robbed a bank and actually robbed the bank. Actually still had the bands that were wrapped around the money with the stamp on it. And he laid them all around him and took pictures and posted it on Facebook.
What a genius.
And was bragging about how he was balling and making money and this and that. And he was and some friend of a friend turned him in. He had also left a prescription bottle with his name on it in the getaway car that they abandoned. Like, I mean, it's like you're just the dumbest person ever.
And like you said, eventually they start making stupid mistakes like that.
You
And
get cocky.
yep, yep. But with all that being said, on March 23rd, 2022, in a plea agreement with the federal prosecutors, the popular Bay Area rapper known as Kafani pleaded guilty this week to 4 federal offenses, including conspiracy. Records show Kafani, who goes by the name of Amir Rashid and Mark the Django Hicks, pleaded guilty Tuesday to conspiracy, aggravated identity theft, bank fraud, and wire fraud.
Can I mention some? Are we sure about popular? I mean, really? Like, you don't know who he is.
Maybe in the Bay Area, you know,
Popular, maybe in the local. Yeah, I guess just the Bay Area. Bay Area is still pretty big, but yeah.
Hey, but that's how we get to square one. 87 months. And if we look at the other individuals, Kafani got 87 months. Hicks, who was his brother, 48 months. Dion Costello, that was the individual that they used to recruit the drug addicts and other people to impersonate, 54 months. Suzanne Areola, that was the lady who kept going in to do the notary. She got 84 months.
That's crazy.
Age 72, 84 months.
She's going to die in prison. She's a drug addict. Well, she may live longer in prison.
Man, but I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely not a drug addict, but wouldn't they go through like some crazy withdrawals, or I don't know.
Well, you know, keep in mind too, I don't know. Some of these people may have gotten sentence reductions after.
Yeah,
it
usually happens that way. I notice.
Yeah, so you know, I can't believe he only got 87 months. He's been in federal prison before. He's got an extensive credit history, and he keeps having a gun.
Yeah,
like they don't like you to have a gun if you're doing these things. Do you know, like the difference between walking into a bank with a gun, you're probably going to get 10 years. You walk into a bank with a note, you're probably going to get 2 or 3 years. There's a way bigger difference. And they don't like it. They don't care if your gun's in your closet, in your house, 15 miles away. They don't like that.
Don't mess with those firearms.
He's been known to cure insecurity just with his laugh. His organ donation card lists his charisma. His smile is so contagious. Vaccines have been created for it. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't typically commit crime, but when I do, it's bank fraud. Stay greedy, my friends.
Support the channel. Join Matthew Cox's Patreon.
But that's the story, and it was a whole lot in that. And
I wonder
there you have it, folks. Yeah.
What was the final dollar amount?
When I looked into that, it said he had to pay restitution of like $1.9 million, which I found a little odd because they did so much.
No, but I think that's because they probably remember they recovered. What they recover, 300,000 or 400,000 in cash. Then they're going to sell all the vehicles. They're going to
and there was also another thing. Sorry to cut you off. They did also call out that a lot of the money was unaccounted for. There was a part when I read the paperwork, I should have included that. They did say a lot of the money was unaccounted for.
Right. Well, that's what the unaccounted for part is what he owes. That 1 point, he still owes that because they couldn't recoup it.
Okay.
So, I mean, what's that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My sound just got all weird. Sorry about that. But yeah, 1.9.
I think it probably sounds to me like it was more like 2.5 million. So, because think about it, it's just the numbers we came up with. There were about 3 or 4 transactions that were around 300,000. So let's say there's 300,000. That's 900,000. Plus, we know there were two mortgages taken out for roughly 750,000. Well, that's 1.5. 1.5 plus 900,000. You know, that's 2.4. There was a couple other ones that were like, you know, 140, 100. So let's say 2.5. They recovered some of that, but a chunk of it, obviously 1.5, they didn't recover. So he still owes a huge chunk of money that he didn't give up, which is odd. So that makes me feel like he may not have cooperated. You know, he may have just taken a plea. He may have cooperated. But to me, I feel like he would have gotten a lot more time if he didn't cooperate, only because of his record. So he may have gotten a 5K1, and that's why he was down around 84 months. That's why it seemed like the woman that signed, think about it, 70-something years old, she got the same amount of time almost.
Yep.
So he probably got, you know, more like 10 or 12 years, and then they just reduced it because he cooperated against everyone else.
You said it, not me.
I'm saying that seems more reasonable, because otherwise that sentence he got
makes you wonder, right? Especially with his record. And
yeah, especially it's really the record. If it weren't for the record, I'd say that's probably the sentence he under the federal guidelines he probably should have ended up with about 7 years, 6 or 7 years. But that's if you exclude his history with fraud. But once you've been hit with fraud a few times, they don't now they're going to hammer you. They're going to hammer you. So, but anyway, yeah, I think that's you know, he has all these little tiny, he just never really explored his scheme from anything other than just getting away with the money. He didn't explore it from the angle of how can they track these things back to me? Like, you know, getting things mailed to an address that's unassociated with me or anyone I know, like an abandoned house. Yep. Like, find an abandoned house, mail some things to it, I've had houses where I was mowing the yard. I was paying someone to mow the yard for a house that I don't live in or don't own because I was constantly getting mail sent there. You know, or getting even the phone number. Like, if you're able to steal these people's information, why didn't you get phone numbers using their information? You can then have those phone numbers mailed to the houses. You can then have the ATM cards for the banks mailed to the multiple different houses. Like, those are usually the ways that people get fucked up, or, you know, because of where are these things being mailed.
But even with that, in another story that I had went over, there was a gentleman, he was also doing the gold, but what he did was online, he would set up virtual offices underneath other people's identities. And he was a little bit more thorough in covering his tracks. So he would do that, and they would ship it to those virtual offices, and he would just go pick up the mail. Well, but even with that, he eventually got tracked because they did a controlled delivery. They saw him get into an Uber. They pulled up the Uber records, and from that's how they associated with his identity.
Probably use his credit card.
Exactly, on his legit Uber account. But everything else he did right. But when they did the controlled delivery, they saw the Uber he went into, and then they did a warrant on the records for that, and they were able to piece it together.
Like, another thing about my scam was that I would set up a scam completely independent just for this scam, buy 2 or 3 houses, get the money out, close the whole scam down, throw everything away, move to a different state, start over from scratch. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's like, you're not tracking any of that. None of that's following me here. You know, you don't want to be sitting in your house one day and get a knock at the door from something you did 2.5 years ago. You know, never put anything in my name. So, not never, but in most of those scams just did. You know, initially I was making those same mistakes like he made, same ones. But then when I was on the run, like, I couldn't afford to fuck up.
Yeah.
Trust me, he's laying in bed right now. He's in his bunk right now, kicking himself at all the mistakes he made.
Do you think he's kicking himself considering he's done similar schemes to this in the past and got caught up?
No, I think he's kicking himself because he made such stupid mistakes. Not because he's kicking himself like, oh, I did the wrong thing. What was I thinking? I think it was more like, I fucked up. I should have covered my tracks better. You know, I don't see him, you know, I don't think he's like, wow, I should be a decent human being. I really need to find Jesus. And I don't think any of that's going through his mind.
And if that does, it's usually temporary.
Yeah. It's funny, the Christian, you get these guys that come to prison, pick up a Bible, read the Bible, and preach Jesus the whole 5 years they were there, and then put the Bible down as soon as they were walking out the door.
Like, thanks, Jesus. I'm good.
You would
now.
talk to guys that would say, "This is just how I do my time." I'm like, "Yeah, but you've been locked up 3 times." Yeah, I know. I always go with the, I study, and yeah, but as soon as you leave, they're like, "Well, I'm a drug addict." I mean, it's what are you doing?
It's funny, but it's also very sad.
No, it's super sad. But listen, most of what I laugh about is pathetic, sad, horrible behavior, even on my own part. Because I can't walk around crying all the time.
Yeah.
So I try and find humor in the absurdity of my own mistakes and other people's. But anything else? This was great. Like I do me a favor and hit the subscribe button and hit the like bell so you get notified of videos like this. If you like this format and the way we did this, then let me know in the comment section. I'd love to know, like maybe infamous ghost money. That's too long. Infamous Ghost and I can, or I'm just going with Ghost. Maybe Ghost and I can do another one of these, pick something out, but let me know if you like this format and what you think. Leave me a comment in the comment section. Also, if you like the program, I got a Patreon. You could join Patreon for $10 a month or 125. And if for 125, you get a different painting every single month of a different con man. The other thing is you can thank me. There's a thank button on the scroll bar just below the video. You can hit a thank for like $1.99 or $4.99 or $49.99. I've had a bunch of guys do the $49.99. I think that's amazing. Honestly, I think the $1.99 is amazing. So anything you could throw my way, I appreciate. And thank you very much. And I appreciate you guys watching, and see ya.